Drew, is it ready yet?
Yeah, come on, man. The Browns game is almost on.
Hey, I never made my mom's beer chili before. I want to make sure I get this right. Now, it's time for the secret ingredient. Turn your heads. Hi, I'm Drew Carey from The Drew Carey Show. We're on the set of my show. This is the Warsaw Tavern where we hang out and drink. It used to be full of Brown stuff. Right over here where there's nothing, there used to be a Browns helmet. And right over here, see all the Cavalier stuff? That used to be all Browns pennants, and we used to have stickers and stuff all over the place, and I took it all down ever since Art Modell stabbed us in the back. I was a Browns fan all my life. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, right in the city. I went to city school. I remember as a kid, I got a little Browns cap, a winter cap. I was so excited because it had a Browns helmet on it, and I used to be, I used to always be Leroy Kelly. We'd play in the backyard, and I'd run. My fondest memories growing up were me and the family sitting around in the winter watching games and cheering for the Browns. I mean, it's just something you do. Actually, all my favorite Browns moments that I remember that are stuck in my memory are all these really sad things. Like I remember Red Right 88 when Brian Sipe threw that one pass against the Raiders in Cleveland, and I remember the drive and the fumble and everything. It's all memories like that where I think, ooh.
The snap to Elway. The look, the throw, touchdown!
I'd rather not talk about it. Thanks.
I leave Cleveland, Ohio, 35 years, and leave my heart, a good part of my heart and soul there.
It's like you lose it. The only thing I can compare it to, I can imagine, it never happened to me, I can imagine if you're in a relationship with your wife and she comes up one day and she says, I don't love you anymore and I'm taking the kids and I'm leaving. I'm not going to cry about it. I'm going to move on with my life, but I'm not going to be happy and go, oh, I hope you have a good time. I'm going to say, well, good. I hope the kids turn out to be delinquents, and I hope you, wreck your car on the way out, and I'll throw your stuff out the house and throw it on the lawn. I get so mad when I think about these guys moving, and what would I say to them as they packed up the trucks? You good riddance. That's what I would say.
This all started because Art Modell lied to the people of Cleveland about his true intentions.
I mean, what if they said tomorrow, the guy that owned the rights to the American flag said, I'm taking the American flag and the Army and we're going to, Europe. It's not going to be the United States Army anymore. You have to think of another name, and have to give a new flag. People go, what? I was raised on it. It's just a symbol, You can have any kind of flag. It'd be any colors. But, it's just like that kind of feeling. You can't take my identity like that. I don't know. I'll live, with the Browns leave, but it's really horrible.
Thanks, Drew. It is horrible. And here are some of the many. Lou the Toe Groza. Lou the Pen Groza today. Hall of Famers, so many Hall of Famers, many on hand, as Andrea reported.
The Cleveland Browns, one of the league's signature franchises in all of sports, one of the franchises most closely linked to its city, most passionately and consistently supported by its fans. Fans who today, with a mixture of sadness, anger, and resignation, arrive more to mark an occasion than to watch an otherwise meaningless football game between the Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals. The Browns are a team of legend, the team of Paul Brown, the team of Marion Motley and Otto Graham, and of course of Jim Brown. The team of shared memory for Clevelanders of several generations. Ryan to Collins for the championship in 1964. The cold heartbreak of Brian Sipe's 1980 team. And the teams who later that decade 3 times came within a game of the Super Bowl. It may have been temporarily painful, but it was shared pain. It was part of what it meant to be from Cleveland. Now that team, if its owner has his way, will be gone. Hi, everybody. I'm Bob Costas, joined in a bit by Mike Ditka. As you know, the Browns situation is complicated. The city has taken legal action to block Art Modell's move to Baltimore. The NFL itself is well aware that the Browns are only the most extreme example of a recent spate of franchise hopscotching that imperils the league's good name. And thus, the league could vote at next month's owners' meeting to block the Browns' move. So it's possible that NFL football in some form can still be saved for Cleveland. We'll talk about that and also bring you the thoughts of Browns players of the past when we come back here in a few minutes. A mild day for mid-December in Cleveland. Temperatures could get up around 40 degrees. This will not be a sellout, and thus the game is blacked out in Cleveland. There are a few Save Our Browns demonstrations going on outside the park. So far, no incidents of any kind, no open demonstrations of anger. We're joined now by Mike Ditka. Coach, what's your take on this situation?
Well, Bob, I tell you, I think the irony of the whole deal is that most of the country really doesn't understand the significance of what's occurring in Cleveland. But they should. because if it can happen here, it can happen anywhere. Let me talk about the fans a little bit. I met a lot of people, talked to a lot of people in the last day. These fans are some of the greatest fans in the country. I said that when I was a coach, when I had to come in here. These are rabid fans who really love the Cleveland Browns. Let me talk about the stadium. The fans don't care about this stadium. They like this stadium. They don't mind anything about it. The people who should care about the stadium are the visiting teams. The visiting teams' locker rooms are the worst in the National Football League. These locker rooms have not changed since I was a player. They're small, overcrowded, they're not sufficient for anything, but that's what should be changed. But the stadium itself, the fans get along with that. Let me talk about the third thing, the owner. Art Modell, a wonderful man, made the greatest mistake that he ever made. He went through, he tried to execute a plan that makes no sense. Here's a man who came into the league a number of years ago, bought the Cleveland Browns. He's made a reputation in this community. He destroyed it with one greedy move. And that move was based solely on one thing, nothing else, money. And that's wrong. And I want to say this to some of the other owners in the National Football League, especially the guy in Chicago. Don't make the same mistake. Fans do not forget.
Don't make the same mistake in Chicago, or you'll have Ditka to deal with. Also with us in Cleveland is Jim Gray. Let's go down to him on the field. Jim.
All right, thank you very much, Bob. Well, there's a lot of security here today. There are 4 SWAT units here, 5 riot response units, 250 officers. But so far inside, the people are very quiet and melancholy. They look like they are here for a funeral. Now, we also have learned that outside the stadium there are a couple of thousand people who are protesting the actions of Art Modell. So far there has been no violence out there. We are now joined by Jim Brown, the all-time great running back for the Cleveland Browns. Jim, you have been rather unemotional until you arrived today. What are your emotions now?
Well, of course, this is what the game is about. The fans, the people. It's a very difficult day. If this is the last game, it's emotional. I'm going to keep mine inside. But for the fans, I think it's a terrible day.
Jim, we appreciate you joining us. We're sorry we're so short with our time.
Thank you very much.
Let's go back upstairs to Bob Costas.
Jim, as you know, the 2 central figures in this dispute are Art Modell and Cleveland Mayor Michael White. Now, Modell declined interview requests by NBC on the advice of his lawyers. Today, he's at his home in West Palm Beach, Florida. Yesterday, here in Cleveland, I spoke with the mayor. Is it realistic to hope that you win in court and Art Modell is made to stay for the remainder of his lease and maybe even beyond? Or is it a more practical scenario to win in court and then that gives you some leverage and you can make a deal to bring a new franchise here under better circumstances?
We have been wronged. The league knows it, the lawyers know it, Commissioner Tagliabue knows it, and America knows it. I think it is incumbent upon the commissioner, the league, and Mr. Modell to make it right. We are very reasonable people, but this must be made right.
Given the present circumstances, would it be acceptable to the city of Cleveland to retain the Browns' name, retain the team's colors, and receive a promise that a new franchise was coming here immediately or close to immediately, and then let Art Modell take off for Baltimore?
We want our team, we want our colors, and we want our name.
But could our team be some team that isn't presently in Cleveland?
That's not a matter that I'm going to discuss on nationwide TV.
Was the city late to realize how serious this situation was? Did they take the Browns for granted while they were dealing with the Indians, dealing with the Cavaliers, building the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Did they underestimate how annoyed Art Modell was getting?
The day before the election, Art Modell stood on the podium with Governor Glenn Dending saying they were having fun trying to sabotage our election, and 72% of the people in this community still voted to keep the Browns in town and to raise the money. All of that, Bob, in 331 days. We weren't asleep at the switch. We did every single thing the team and the owner asked, and we did it within an efficient amount of time.
When was the last time you spoke to Art Modell?
I have not spoken to Art Modell in more than 2.5 months.
What would you say to him if he called you tomorrow?
Art, I've known you a long time. You've done a lot of good things in this town. But the very worst thing you've ever done in your life is what you did to Cleveland on November the 6th. You still have the opportunity to make it right by renouncing this deal and returning the Cleveland Browns here. If not, then we are obliged to fight you at every turn until we bring our team home.
Time only allows us to show a small portion of the conversation I had yesterday with Mayor White. He made several points in a comprehensive interview, one of which was that this is no longer just about the Browns, that everybody in the country is aware that the issue of franchise free agency really imperils the credibility of the NFL unless they do something about it.
Well, there's no question about it. It's about greed, really. And everybody wants to make money. Everybody's entitled to make money. But you can't operate a franchise in a city like Art Modell in this city for 40 years. He made money. He got his reputation. He's well known all over the country because of what the National Football League has given to him. He's got to start giving back. The fans in Baltimore are not better fans than the fans in Cleveland, believe me.
But, of course, the fans in Baltimore got the shaft some time back when Bob Irsay took the moving bands, took off for Indianapolis. Commissioner Tagliabue says the league basically is powerless unless they can get that limited antitrust exemption from Congress so that they wouldn't have to fear treble damages from teams they try to stop from moving from city to city in an antitrust suit. Up next, we'll hear from Will McDonough on the latest news relating to this Cleveland situation, and we'll be joined here in the booth by former Browns quarterback Brian Sipe.
The judge in Cleveland said we're going to have a trial on February 12th. The first thing that's going to happen to me, the NFL will not vote now on Cleveland on January 17th. They'll put that over and say, let's go to the court in Cleveland and find out what happens. Well, this judge has already issued a temporary restraining order. He has the trial. He was appointed last year. He faces election next year. You're going to have him overrule himself and then try to win an election. So I say he fines for Cleveland, then it goes to the Court of Appeals. You go all the way down on the process until the end. I think you're in the next year. And I know the Browns have already made contingency plans to play in Cleveland next year if they have to. As soon as this season's over, they're moving all their personnel to Baltimore. They're going to train in Baltimore. But if they have to, they will fly into home games in Cleveland next year and then fly back to Baltimore.
All right, Will. The worst nightmare in sports. More action in the courts than on the field. Let's go back to Cleveland and Bob.
Well, Greg, as you know, the president and general manager of the Cincinnati Bengals is Mike Brown. He's the son of Paul Brown, the founder of the Cleveland Browns, one of the most significant figures in the history of pro football. In fact, Art Modell's first significant act after assuming ownership of the Browns was to fire Paul Brown. Yesterday, we asked Mike Brown about the rich Cleveland history.
I have a million memories, and they're all good ones. My dad had a magnificent career with the Browns in Cleveland. And he created something there that I think flowered into what we see today. To have that cut down, to see it transplanted elsewhere, if you will, is hard for me to accept. I think the Browns belong in Cleveland. I am associated with the Cincinnati Bengals, and this may sound funny, but at heart, I'm a Cleveland Browns fan. That is the tree from which our branch sprung.
We're joined now by Brian Sipe, the Browns quarterback of the 70s and 80s. Brian, you drove to Cleveland from California this past week, stopping at Browns fan club locations all along the way. What was it like?
Well, I did, and I was with my friend and great Browns tackle, Jerry Shirk. We felt like we needed to be back here for this possibly last home game, experience it with the fans. But what we found all the way across the country was an overwhelming outpouring of emotion by not only Browns fans, but sports fans all across the country. This is something that's really touched them.
Ron, you've had so many great memories in this stadium. Today's got to be a tough day.
Well, it is, and especially for this city. You know, I'm not sure what the outcome of all of this is going to be. But regardless of what happens, it will never be the same. And there was 50 years of history here, and we felt that as players, and we felt like we were carrying a little something special each time we took the field out here.
Brian, thanks. Mike Ditka and I will be back at halftime. I'll have a commentary on this situation then. And in the meantime, Greg Gumbel will wrap things up in New York right after these messages. Back now at halftime, Mike Ditka and I are spending this Sunday in Cleveland, and I would say the cheers are pretty hollow here. It's a strange atmosphere for a football game.
Bob, very hollow. I think the loudest noise made in the stadium so far has been booing, and a booing and Ray Risen every time he catches a pass. Pretty strange situation, but it's a very, very dead crowd.
The opponents here today, the Cincinnati Bengals, their president and GM, Mike Brown, is the son of Cleveland Browns founder Paul Brown. And here is Mike Brown with Jim Gray. Jim.
Thank you, Bob. We are in the box of Mike Brown, the son of Paul Brown. Your father created this franchise and was the founder. Is this a difficult day for you to be here?
Well, it's sad if this is the last day here. In my heart of hearts, I can't make myself believe that. Somehow, some way, I think NFL football is going to continue on here. I can't tell you that I know just what form that's going to be, but the city deserves it. It has a rich tradition, and I just don't think it's fair that it should end. I don't believe that it's going to end.
These fans have behaved very well up until this point here at halftime. The sadness that you see in the people, can you describe it for us?
Well, they feel it. They've been part of this franchise for generations, and it is a hurtful thing to them. I understand it because I have the same feeling.
Mike, thank you for joining us.
Okie doke.
Over to you, Bob.
Okay, Jim, the situation here in Cleveland has focused national attention on the issue of franchise free agency in the NFL, and the league itself is certainly not blameless in all this. But for now, let's consider Art Modell. There's no doubt he's in debt. There's also no doubt most of this is his fault. Remember, he bought this franchise for $4 million in the early 60s. It's now worth at least $160 million. He owned it through all the NFL's boom days of the 70s and 80s. And even in today's changed economic climate, the salary cap is $37 million, while each NFL team is guaranteed $38 million a year from network television alone, and that's before they sell a single ticket or bag of peanuts. Who protects the interests of fans if owners can't succeed or claim they can't succeed under circumstances as favorable as that? Those who know Art Modell believe him to be a decent man. Over the years, he's done many good and selfless things for this city. But all of that has been washed away in one monumentally ill-considered act. If Modell felt he couldn't get out from under, if he felt unappreciated by the city of Cleveland, the only honorable way out was to sell the team to local interests. Instead, in a fit of pique and desperation, a good man made a terrible mistake. Now, for Art Modell, the final sad irony is this. He grew up in Brooklyn. He must remember the feelings of heartbreak and betrayal when the Dodgers were taken away. And now Art Modell, a guy from Brooklyn, has become his sport and his generation's Walter O'Malley.